Hi, my name is Cindy Mochizuki, and I'm a multimedia artist working in drawings, performance, animation, and video, and I'm based in Vancouver, BC. The installation that's up for this exhibition is called Cave to Dream, and it is based on folklore and traditions that I came upon when doing a research residency in Akita in Japan. Some of the themes that are explored in the work are cycles of life and death, rituals, sort of themes around the four seasons, so spring, summer, winter, fall, and different methods to which we conjure stories and tell stories through kind of reflecting on different folkloric creatures and different traditions and practices that we hold in our everyday lives. The research for Cave to Dream came about in 2017 when I was invited by the Akita University of Art to spend a week in Akita with professor and cultural anthropologist Toshiaki Ishikura and curator Makiko Hara. And we had this really great adventure looking at different traditions that are very specific to the Akita region, particularly because I'm really interested in folkloric creatures and ghosts. And the Japanese word for sort of spirit creature is yokai. And so they took me to a museum to look at this creature called the namahage. And the namahage appears on December 31st and kind of checks in with you if you are good or bad. And they are usually performed by single Japanese men, and they show up at your home, and you have to make sure you have a very delicious sort of buffet of dinner or food for the demon and sake, and you have to trick the demon and try to get him very full and drunk, and then he forgets about why he's there and he leaves. It's a masked figure that's kind of like a Japanese oni. So as a child, I also was told stories about these onis or these demons as well. And they're scary because they kind of scare the heck out of bad luck. Being someone who is Japanese Canadian or born in Vancouver, but with roots and connections to Japan, it's always really interesting as an adult to go back there as an artist and sort of see and hear and even taste and smell things that my grandparents might have tried to recreate in Vancouver. On my father's side of the family, I'm considered fourth generation Japanese Canadian. So my dad's family was interned during the war, and then when they were released from the camps, they chose what's called repatriation, which is exile to Japan. So he, as a small child, grew up in Japan as well until they were allowed to come back to the West Coast. And my mom is actually born in Osaka and lived in Yokohama. So I kind of, I guess, straddled between those two cultures and was raised speaking Japanese as well in the household. So, I think growing up, we were exposed to a lot of like Japanese songs or bedtime stories or like different traditions, but in a very distilled way, where I'm like, where does this come from? Like, why would my grandmother say, if you don't eat all your rice, this demon monster will come and get you, or something like that? And then later, as an adult, going and being like, okay, maybe this is rooted, or this is the context to this, or this is how it's distilled over. So I think being fourth generation, it's interesting for me to reenact or reperform those things, and especially through art, you kind of have agency to kind of imagine and push those forms further. And I think that's what Cave did for me. That's what the piece is. So it's not a representation of the traditions in its pure state, but it's how, even as a child or as an adult, how you are with them, how you respond to them, how you interpret them. And how that makes meaning to you in your everyday life. When I came back to Vancouver and I decided to create this installation, I wanted to I was thinking a lot about what is dream and what is reality, and what you thought you saw or what you thought you believed was real and not. And so I was thinking a lot about Plato's allegory of the cave and how the prisoners inside the cave thought the shadow puppets that they saw or the shadows were real. And so through Cave to Dream, there's a lot of instances where the media work, especially the 4 films, you're not sure if they're states of dream or reality. Snow has a character, the lead character is a grandmother, which was important for me to put an elderly woman as the lead, as the kind of heroine of the story. And she is accompanied by a 9-year-old little girl, which is her granddaughter. And one evening on December 31st, they're preparing, they're waiting for the Namahage demons to arrive. And midnight strikes and they don't show up, so they go to bed and the demons arrive. And there's a negotiation between the main demon to the grandmother. She wants to take away the granddaughter. And it's sort of left, and the grandmother is able to sort of dispel and get rid of the demon. And so it's this moment where, was that real or was it a dream? And to also give the grandmother agency, to be like, she had this wisdom, you know, sometimes you'll see your grandparents in a certain light, then you'll see them in another light and be like, oh, they had these powers, they have these magic skills to kind of create change, do different things. And so that was Snow. Onyx is a story of, and we could always say that the character is the same little girl. I also kind of, there's always an older character and a younger character, and I guess it's for me, the audience could place themselves in either the one that's at sort of more the edge of time and a character that's more closer to the beginning of time. And so it's a story of a girl and her father going for a walk, and they're just simply throwing a black stone, an onyx stone. And it is a reference back to Snow, where the grandmother refers to a dream that she consistently has. So you'll see how the stories kind of add up. Salt is about a woman that lives within the ocean, and she collects these objects. And it introduces the myth of salt that I've created, which also is a mineral that has cleansing properties in Japanese culture. You kind of put them at the foot of your door to kind of send ghosts away. In funeral rituals, we used to throw salt if you come back from a funeral. And I introduce a character called the Shisha, which is half rabbit and half dog that comes in, and the creature returns back to the belly of the ocean. The Shadow, the last story, is about the same figure, the girl. She's a bit older, and she hears the cry of a baby at night, and she calls out to her grandmother, but the grandmother is no longer around, and she independently walks into this miso cellar where they have vats of miso fermenting, and she falls into one, and she meets her shadow, and they have a dialogue or a conversation around fear. And then she's able to sort of dispel the scary spirit on her own without the grandmother. So those are the 4 stories. And it doesn't really matter which one you begin with, or it doesn't even matter if you need to see all 4, but together in the room, they each have their own original musical composition. So together, it has this really incredible sort of otherworldly sound, but you can spend time with each one and kind of rotate how you begin as well. So I was really interested in looking at Japanese paper arts, or tatebanko, so it's tiny paper sets. So the idea of the cave, or the idea of these portals, were crafted or designed thinking about that. And then the animations are actually all watercolor paintings or hand painted. And the story of Snow is the only live action element. That film was shot in one day with, I think, about 20 performers, some of which are non-performers, so the 2 lead don't normally perform. And I worked closely together with a sound designer, Antoine Bedard, and an editing team and other collaborators that helped. The set is shaped in a circle, so kind of continuing the movement of the 4 seasons, and specifically made for the circular space at the Richmond Art Gallery, so that the viewers can kind of move through, the bodies can move through the space and experience the different films in that way. In November, there will be a performance element, so the installation gets animated by 6 figures, 4 of which are a kind of a mix of my interpretation of the Namahage demon and then a snow spirit called the Yuki Onna. and very small audiences of, I think, only 40, so 20 at a time, will get to experience a very intimate one-on-one performance for a group of 20 and get a chance to view one of the films in a different and unique way.